Welcome, everybody. Today we're talking about panic attacks, and they are dramatically abrupt bursts of acute anxiety. And what they feel like is they feel like they're life threatening. And they build to a crescendo of fear within seconds and sometimes minutes, but usually seconds. And what they lack in duration, they make up in stress because when they happen, they are paralyzing. The body sensations of anxiety become extremely intense. You get a pounding heart, you get racing pulse, the feeling of difficulty getting enough air, and it makes it feel as if you're about to die. And that interpretation is mistaken, but it's responded to. And it triggers more anxiety and intensifying panic. And why does it do that? Because you feel like you're going to die. And that vulnerability comes out of nowhere. At least we think it comes out of nowhere. But where it really, really, really comes from is the idea that many people, especially if you're depressed or anxious or OCD or any of those lovely man-made diagnoses that we love to create for ourselves, even though they're in our genes also, those things operate out of fear. So if you have a fear-based mentality, you're a walking brainstem. And yes, you have prefrontal cortex to think, but most of your thought and most of your wisdom and most of your intellect gets clouded by the panic that you're always vulnerable. I'm going to lay in bed all day, so I'm depressed. So now you're vulnerable. I don't feel like going to work. Now you're vulnerable, especially if you respond to it. I'm scared that I'm going to have a car accident. Okay, now you're vulnerable. We're going to lose the game. Now you're vulnerable. People that broadcast their fears across their life, they create so much work. And they are the most difficult people on the planet to have to deal with because of their anxiety. They drive people absolutely crazy. But the problem is, people with panic attacks are even worse because it's almost like somebody tried to kill them and they keep walking through their life as if somebody's going to kill them at any given moment because a panic attack comes out of nowhere. And panic attacks can occur out of the blue, even during sleep. It's called night terrors. And the feeling of loss of control magnifies the terror. We always want to feel like we're in control of our life. One attack is disturbing enough, but it often generates worry about having another and another and another, and that very worry makes our brain wear itself down until it finally has another panic attack. Because people that live off of worry think that they are doing what they have to do to survive. And so they're always being hypothetical in their thinking. If this happens, then that. If that happened, then this. If you said this to me, then you must think this about me. This is this, is this, is this. And if you want to live in fear, if you want to live in depression, you're not going to survive. You're not going to survive. You're not a resilient person. You're a pain in the ass to be around. Because fear-based people are the opposite of living. They cope with life. They're not alive. They're zombies walking on the planet with narratives about what the existence is all about, depending on what their fears are. So the bottom line is, if you want to be a person who lives, you have to understand what it takes to live. And that is to be resilient. You have to be faith-based. And I'm not talking about God here, but that's a very helpful tool. But the bottom line is, when faith enters, fear leaves. When fear enters, faith leaves. And so the deal is that people that live in fear keep reinforcing the fear. They have no faith. So going to the grocery store, buying a new car, getting a new job, moving to a new city, getting married, having children, walking out of your door and going into the grocery store, meeting a new neighbor, mowing your lawn, whatever it is, taking your dog for a walk. It's all a leap of faith. Every single thing you do in life is a leap of faith without any guarantees about what is going to happen when you go there. You have to have enough faith in yourself that you know how to adapt and you've made it this far in your life and sure as hell know what to do when bad things happen. Now, if you don't trust yourself because out of the blue, crazy things have happened, like a psychotic person at the grocery store, or, you were at a baseball game and got in a fight, or whatever weird thing happens, a car accident, whatever, if you're going to reinforce that this is how life is, I'm just always going to be caught off guard, bad things are always going to happen to me. And every time I get in a crowd or a Walmart or whatever, somebody's going to do something and I have to prepare for that. If you're going to live like that, you're already dead. But people love to live in that. And they love to victimize themselves by saying, I have panic attacks. I have anxiety. I have depression. Well, if you drop your ass in the middle of a jungle, you'd probably be dead. And that's the truth. So you're not going to be a survivor. You're not going to be a person who takes a family forward. You're not going to be a leader. You're just going to be a walking zombie living on the planet, taking up space, eating, pooping, having sex, creating fear for children because you never deal with your own fear. Panic attacks are the ultimate outcome of people who wear their brain down by living in fear all of the time. And so the panic attacks are like a heart attack. I'm sick of living like this. I'm so stressed out. I am tired. Your brain is tired of living in fear. And since you're too stupid or too lazy to deal with it, your brain gets sick of it because you keep running it like a drag race through life. And it can't do that. So if you want to live a suicidal life, be depressed, be anxious, and never do anything about it, and you'll do a really good job taking years off your life and making everybody miserable along the way. Or you face your fears and discover what faith is in living in faith, which is all we're given in this life, is we have to move forward, we have to make choices, we have to make decisions, and we live with the consequences of whatever we get in return. Anxiety involves much of the same brain circuitry as fear, and one of the functions of fear is to guarantee that you take defensive action. Stress responses is activated, preparing your body to fight or fly. Well, it also creates a lot of chemical things that go on in your body, like cortisol releases. That means that your body becomes fatter because your body's trying to protect itself from danger. And so if I become bigger and fatter, I will feel safer. Well, that's not good. That's not good at all. The reaction happens before even you have a chance to think about it. Never mind that it's a false alarm. The panic jumpstarts the body's response, and especially sudden and intense. The heart, which plays a critical role in the defensive preparation, revs up. The oxygen goes into the muscles, which the brain is also a muscle, as quickly as possible. And it prepares you to fight or flight. And your body. There's evidence that those who are subjected to panic attacks are highly attuned to body sensations. So they become hypochondriacs because they're always aware of their body. They're always aware of what's going on in their brain. They're always hyper aware and making room for their anxiety and their depression and how their body's feeling. And am I having a heart attack? Am I sick? Am I getting a cold? Everything. They become so self-aware. Panic attack people are hypochondriacs. They will go to the doctor 5,000 times more than the average human being, or they will sit in misery because they can't stand doctors all the time. And they drive everybody crazy. And they love to Google all of their problems and sit there and try to be their own doctor. And so the deal is panic attacks are a result of living in fear. And if you want to remedy panic attacks, you have to learn how to live in faith. I have faith that ... instead of I fear ... I have faith that ... That is the answer to your panic attack. That is the answer to your fear, and you need to land there. I have faith that ... That's where you got to land, because you got to train your brain not to live in fear. You're not in the middle of the jungle about to be eaten by the lion. You're walking through life. You will make it. You made it so far. You will figure it out. You will survive. You will adapt. You've done it. You've been doing it and you will do it again. You are resilient. You know how to do this. You know how to handle conflict. And even if you don't, you'll figure it out. It may not be pretty, but you'll figure it out and you'll make some mistakes. And that's called learning through experiences, experiential learning, which is the vast majority of life. But panic attack people are control freaks because of their fears. Oh my God, if this happens, oh, you said this to me. Oh, that happened. Oh my God, my boss is doing this. Oh, my company is doing this. So I'm going to be laid off in a month. Oh, I better prepare for that. Oh my God. If you want to do that to yourself, you're doing it to yourself. And then you're making everybody live in your fear. Lovely. Do you realize how much you impact people who depend on you? Probably not. Do you realize how ogreous it is to live with somebody who's always afraid? It sucks. Why don't you take accountability for it and deal with it? Why don't you step in and get to know what faith is so your brain will heal instead of subjecting everybody to your bullshit? But this happens, and it happens all the time because the vast majority of people in this life are either depressed or anxious or have some ingredient of pervasiveness of those features. A panic attack is a sudden response to the feeling of imminent danger. So the body brings all its forces to bear, protecting you from what your system has erroneously signaled, that's an error, signaled as a dire threat. Well, your life is not in a dire threat all the time, guys. You're safe. The vast majority, 99 point whatever percent of the time, you're pretty safe. You're at least as safe as you can be, especially like in an airplane where people freak out. Oh my God, I'm going to die in an airplane. There was an airplane crash last month, and that means my plane's going to crash. No, it doesn't operate that way. Statistically, it doesn't, but we live in the worst possible statistics if you're living panic attacks. We prepare for the worst possible outcomes, and then we subject our children and our spouses and everybody that loves us and our coworkers to our own crazy life. That's why you probably need a therapist if you can't figure it out yourself. How to not live in fear. You live in faith. Why don't you Google that one instead of all your hypochondriac sicky symptoms? That might help you more than anything. In the grand scheme of things, panic attacks happen because the brain is built in error to the side of danger. The perceived trouble. That's because we used to live out in the middle of nowhere, out in the hills, out in the jungle. That's where we used to live. So our brain is predisposed to live out in the middle of the country where animals could come and eat us in the middle of the night, or Indians in the Wild West, or whatever. In Europe, the mass hordes of crazy people, and crazy tribes would come and get you. Well, that's how we grew up, but we're not doing that anymore. We live in houses now, the vast majority, unless you choose to be homeless or you're schizophrenic and live in your car or whatever, or live in whatever pop tent you got during COVID. But the bottom line is that we're not quite as in danger as we used to be. But our imagination will sure as hell invent just about every possible way that bad things can happen if you give a person too much time, like COVID did. All right, we're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back and talk more about panic attacks. Welcome back, everybody. All right, we're talking about panic attacks and when are they about to occur? Well, the timetable for a panic attack is there is no timetable. They can arise at any time. It's really your brain just wearing down and wearing down and wearing down, kind of like a part in your car that finally breaks at any given point during the time that your car is driving. That's how they arise. And they've been known to awake people from sleep. And studies show that up to 1/4 of the population of the world experience an isolated panic attack at some point in life. However, their unpredictability gives them power and shapes our imagination to prepare for the next panic attack. And sure enough, if you're going to prepare for the next panic attack, you're training your brain to live in fear. You're building that muscle, and that muscle is real easy to build because it's right around the brainstem, which is the brainstem is fight or flight, but all the amygdala, which is your emotions, surrounds the brainstem. And if you're going to live in fear, you're basically creating a lot of superhighways that get in the way of your prefrontal cortex, which is what makes you a human being. It's called logic. And that intellectual person no longer becomes intellectual because people that live in fear, there is no way that they're going to access their intellect in a very good way because most of their highways, most of their big, industrial hormones are in their brainstem because they've trained it to live in fear. So if you want to be a fear-based person, you're not going to be very calm. You're not going to be very intellectual. You're not going to make the best decisions. You're going to show yourself as a very high-maintenance individual. You're going to be hard to live with because all of your emotions are always center stage. And that's hard to live with. It's hard to be around. I have panic attacks. Okay, great. Lovely. What are you doing about it? What triggers a panic attack? It's not clear, but sudden response to a feeling of imminent danger, perceived imminent danger. But it's known that stressful experience early in life also contributes to susceptibility to panic attacks. So if you lived with alcoholic parent or crazy siblings or violent people, or you've been molested, or you've been raped, or you've had fights, or when you grew up, or you were picked on and bullied, all of these wonderful childhood experiences create the vulnerability in life that you have to prepare for the worst possible outcome. And so if you want to train your kid to be psychotic and have panic attacks, the best way to do it is be an alcoholic, be an idiot, create a lot of unsafe emotional experiences for your children. And that will sure as hell give them exactly what you want them to have, which is anxiety and fear and depression, so they can go through their life miserable just like you are. The susceptibility to panic attacks is something that we all can experience if we want to walk through life as life is a very vulnerable, horrible experience where bad things happen. Well, yes, there are a lot of bad things that happen. But you have to understand you do what you can, and you have to believe in yourself to be resilient. If you're scared that somebody's going to invade your house, buy a gun. Buy a gun, set it by your bed, put it in a safe, and have that there so you don't have panic attacks that somebody's going to break in your house. Have a plan. That's what we have to have. Just have a plan. If you have a plan, you don't have to sit around thinking about it all day long because you know what the hell you're going to do if somebody breaks in your house. And if you can't have a gun because you got some psychotic state that you live in that doesn't believe in the Second Amendment, then you need another weapon that will help you so you can have some sense of comfort. There's also inflammatory signals that go awry or heighten sensitivity to psychological functions. A panic disorder responds to treatment with behavioral therapy, but the other part of a panic attack is sometimes it can come from medication that is not appropriate for you or medications that are not working for you. So sometimes it's a medical issue. Sometimes it is your body is not getting the circulation that it needs. So sometimes a panic attack is a signal that something's going wrong with your brain. You might be having seizures at night or having some kind of seizures, And so the first line of defense with panic attacks, especially if they come out of nowhere, is what's going on medically with my body. The next line of defense is what is my fear life like? How important is fear to how I think? Once again, a lot of people never, ever reach their intelligent level, their wisdom level, their ability to see things on a far better scale and enjoy the quality of life because they live in fear. So if you want to destroy your intellect and take your IQ down, live in fear. Then you can be a walking brainstem, like an alligator or a lizard or a bird. You can be one of those and you can function just fine. You can eat, sleep, poop, sex. You have all that. But living, you're not going to have that. Some people run from panic attacks. They give rise to the instinct to run. Well, here's what you need to do. Here is the basic thing that you want to do if you have a panic attack. If you have a panic attack, you want to sit down. You want to drink water. If you have a sports bottle, you want to drink from a sports bottle that has an aerator on top because the aerator breaks the oxygen out of the water. Now, the reason I say drink water is because water has 82% oxygen. Air has 23% oxygen. So you could breathe, that's great, but the problem is people that are having panic attacks clench their teeth and breathe through their nose. The problem with that is you only breathe through one nostril at a time. Every 4 hours, you go from one nostril to the other and back to the other and back to the other. And that's why you get boogers, because one side dries up and the other one stays wet, and then they flip. And then you get boogers on the other side and the other one stays wet. And that's how we breathe. We breathe, and if you have boogers, you're not going to breathe very well. And then the other thing is, if you're breathing through nostrils and clenching your teeth, one nostril, you're getting a straw's worth of oxygen, and your brain can no longer function very well, nor can your body, because the brain holds 33% of your blood supply. That's what carries oxygen. So the deal is, if you're going to deplete your brain of oxygen, the brain is going to pull all of the oxygen out of your organs, your heart, your stomach, your lungs, your kidneys, your liver, all of the major organs that are carrying your blood supply, your heart, all of it is carrying your blood supply. The brain is running the show, so the brain is going to take all of the oxygen out of the organs because it's got to run the show. If it doesn't run the show, none of the organs are going to work. So the brain is very selfish. It pulls the oxygen out of those organs and they start to sputter. That's where the pain comes from a panic attack. I'm going to die. I'm lightweight. I'm feeling like I'm croak. I'm feeling like I'm vulnerable. Yes, because you are dying. You're dying because your organs are dying because you're not breathing. If you would breathe, if you would replenish your oxygen, then what happens is your body calms down because your organs are no longer dying. And that's what happens with the panic attack. So if you drink from an aerated bottle, breaking the oxygen out, it's going through your mouth, which is where you breathe, but it's also where you eat. So that oxygen gets broken out of the water so your body doesn't have to do it. And instantly your brain gets a huge dose of oxygen. And when it gets that oxygen, it drops the oxygen back into the organs because it no longer needs to borrow the oxygen from all of your organs. Therefore, the organs stabilize and your brain stabilize. So you drink water when you have a panic attack so that the biological reason, not the psychological, the biological response to the panic attack is being mitigated by oxygen. That is how you begin to remedy. But as you calm down, you have to understand I have to tackle the fear. I'm not going to live afraid of a panic attack. I'm just going to know how to deal with panic attacks. So I'm going to understand that in this life, it's possible that I'm going to have panic attacks, and I have to learn how to deal with a panic attack before it happens or after it happens. And when it happens, I know what to do. Drink water. Drink water. Drink from an aerated bottle, or just breathe the air that you have in front of you through your mouth and not your nose. That is a very important thing to understand if you operate through panic attacks. There's also effective techniques that we have to operate to manage panic attacks. They're so distressing that they generate the impulse to run from fear. That feels right. But some have to face their fears. And if you face your fears, you're going to walk through life with a better quality of life than if you react to fears. If you're going to live a reactive life, everything else in the world is in control of you. If you're going to live a responsive life, you're going to have responses or know that you will create responses to things that scare you. But if we're going to always live on high alert, we're always working, and your brain is doing things it's not designed to do. It is designed to live and to build resiliency and to build familiarity with this life and to look deeper and have a thing called intuition, which also gives us huge red flags. But you're not going to have intuition if you live in fear. The deal is that we have to activate a parasympathetic nerve to slow down our heart rate and ease body tension. And that is the ability to soothe yourself by knowing that you will be resilient, and whatever you fear, instead of sitting around and thinking about what's going to happen, you also have to figure out the remedy to what's going to happen and live in that. On a longer time frame, psychotherapy, cognitive behavioral therapy is also can be very helpful for panic attacks. There's no medications that specifically target panic attacks, though there's a whole lot of medications that are often prescribed, like Xanax or an SSRI or antidepressants like Prozac or serotonin and neuroprophine reuptake inhibitors, antidepressants like Effexor. They can help. They can really help and give your brain an edge, but they're not going to solve it because panic attacks happen very quickly. A panic attack is a sudden rush of fear and anxiety, causes both physical and psychological symptoms. The level of fear experienced is unrealistic and out of proportion to the events and circumstances that trigger the panic attack. So you could be walking through Disneyland and have a panic attack because the crowd is too big or whatever. Or you could just feel vulnerable or something could happen and all of a sudden you start to tremble. You have fast breathing, shortness of breath, perspiration, nausea, cramping, dizziness, numbness of tingling, chills, tightness of the chest and the throat. Why? Because all of your organs are losing oxygen. Oxygen is what makes the sun blow up. That's how your organs operate. They have to have oxygen to pump the blood through them. If you don't have oxygen, the blood just sits in your organs and they die. So we as human beings have to get back to getting that oxygen in the bloodstream so it circulates. So breathe, drink water, breathe, drink water, calm down, be stationary, don't require more of your organs by sitting down so that your organs can not be taxed as much as they are when you're standing up and walking or running or doing something. You want to slow down what your body's doing so your organs are not taxed while you're having a panic attack so you can replenish oxygen back into the bloodstream. There's a loss of control, there's imminent danger. We have to also take along those psychological features that you have to realize, am I really in danger? I'm only in danger because I feel like I'm in danger, and the only danger is that I'm killing myself by not getting oxygen. The symptoms of a heart attack or a respiratory disorder may be accompanied by fear of dying. And so sometimes you can scare the hell out of yourself with a panic attack and give yourself a heart attack because you don't replenish your oxygen. And the onset of symptoms is sudden and develops from either a calm or an anxious state. Because once again, you don't know when the part's going to break in the car if you keep operating it like a drag race. If you're going to live in fear, you are taxing your brain. You are destroying its ability to think. You are destroying your ability to socialize. You're destroying your ability to love. You're destroying your ability to function as a reasonable human being, easy to live with and adapt to, and you're destroying your ability to be productive, destroying your ability to be an expert, destroying your ability to be a leader, all because you choose to live in fear as if the lion is outside the door ready to eat you at any given moment. The deal is you cannot control everything. So you have to understand you adapt. And the more you decide you're going to be an adaptive creature rather than a controlling feature, a person, you're going to live better. You are adaptive. That's what we're supposed to do on this planet is learn and experience failure and adapt to it by what we learn. People that call themselves perfectionists are very subjected to panic attacks because they have to control everything, including themselves. I cannot have a panic attack. How can I have a panic attack? Well, you have a panic attack because you live in fear. You choose to live in fear. You may not exhibit fear to everybody else. You may walk around like you're the God's given gift to the human race, but you're not. You have panic attacks. You live in fear because underneath it, you know you're not God. You know you're not in control. But since you like to act like you are, you're setting yourself up. You're a vulnerable piece of crap just like everybody else. You're an imposter just like everybody else. We're all vulnerable. We're all human beings. And we're all here. And we all flesh and blood. And we all die. And we have to understand that we're here to adapt to the life we're given. And then we die and God hopefully takes us and we are delivered into a different life. Panic attacks can occur while individuals sleeping, causing them to wake up suddenly. And yes, it does because during the REM stage of sleep, what happens is your delta stage, your emotions are processed. And what your brain does during that little 20-minute period of dreaming is it's exhibiting emotions that you repressed in the previous day. So what it does is it creates these very traumatic experiences with people you're familiar with, people that you're not familiar with. It invents scenarios to elicit emotions that you did not elicit in the previous day. That's how your brain resets. So in the next day, you have a fresh slate of not being affected by the emotions from the previous day. So your brain is trying to reset through the dream state. Now, dream states can be very dramatic. If you've repressed a lot of fear, you're probably going to process a lot of fear in your sleep. And when you do that, there's a real good chance that you're going to trigger a panic attack if you've had panic attacks because of the fear and because your brain is playing out the fear so that you can get some relief. But sometimes if you keep running the brain on empty, it's going to have a panic attack during the dream because it doesn't have enough gas to operate. All right, we're going to take another break. We're going to talk about panic attacks. So come back. Welcome back, everybody. Are we talking about panic attacks? Now let's figure out some things that we can do to solve panic attacks. Grounding techniques can be helpful because that's taking control of your thoughts and putting a psychological distance between your thoughts and what you're experiencing. Grounding is simply the action of positively affirming what is known, what is constant, and what is real about the situation. I am sitting here, I'm in a crowd, it's unfamiliar, I'm probably scared by some of that, and I'm okay. Nobody's attacking me, nobody's doing anything weird. It's okay. So you have to kind of give yourself some sense of soothing by grounding yourself in the situation that you're in. And even if it's a dangerous situation, still ground yourself in the constants and in the safety of what you do have available to you. And then you draw a clear line in the sand around what is known and what is transient, what is imagined, and what is unknown. And the mental boundary stops the individual from becoming overwhelmed. And what it does is it accesses your prefrontal cortex, which is your thoughts. That's what you want. Your human being, your thoughts. What do I need to do? What's real? What's not real? What do I have available to me? How can I feel safe? Grounding techniques can be sensory, can be physical, can be cognitive, can be emotional. Sensory grounding techniques involve the person asking yourselves what you know for certain for your senses. Naming I can see, I can touch, I can taste, I can smell. So if you can't smell or you can't taste or you're having, whatever, you're not able to see something, maybe, panic attacks can affect your vision. What you want to understand is you ground yourself in the senses that you have available. Cognitive grounding is also involves identifying what information is known for certain. Name the date, name the time, name the location, affirm that you're in a safe, controlled environment. If you know what day it is, what time it is, what location you're in, you're coming down from panic attack. And that's a very important thing to do, but you have to be grounded. You have to let yourself calm down to access that information. Once you start accessing your prefrontal cortex, your logic, you're pulling blood away from the amygdala, away from the brainstem, and entering into the highways that make you more logical. Emotional grounding is sometimes referred to as emotional labeling. And really, what it describes is okay, I'm feeling fear. Okay, I'm being frustrated. Okay, I'm being a little impatient. Okay, I'm being a little illogical. I am judging. I'm doing this. Whatever emotional things you're doing, become aware of what you're doing that's contributing to the situation in the panic attack. Once again, that's accessing your prefrontal cortex, which is the only thing that's going to counterbalance the fear. Also, breathing. Once again, breathing in water. It's huge. You've got to breathe through your mouth. You got to drink water if you can. That is the most important thing to do to ground yourself. So your brain has the access to the oxygen it needs to restore the organs, to restore itself, and to get yourself back to logic. You're not going to be logic if you're living in fear. Your brainstem is pulling all of the blood into itself, and it is the strongest organ in your brain. It's the strongest part of your brain is your brainstem because you have to survive, fight or flight. So, managing panic attacks is to use the link between the brain and the body to the benefit, and that means becoming mindful. What is making me suffer? What is making me afraid? And mitigate what is making you afraid. What you have to do to mitigate is to have a plan and have to know what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are, and how to manage it. There are many breathing exercises to consider. Controlled breathing involves taking fewer than 10 breaths per minute, with most exercises involving slowing breathing down to 5 breaths per minute with a deliberate inhalation through the nose and the mouth in a big, big, big way, taking big breaths in and big breaths out. Even if we're in a situation that's stressful, we can exploit the fact that there are parts of our brain that don't know the difference and will become relaxed even if we feed them the incorrect information. Okay, the incorrect information is I can't afford to panic. I can't afford to freak out. I need to calm down and focus so that I can navigate the situation. Exercises are tools to be used whenever you feel the need, whether during the onset, the experience, or the aftermath of a panic attack. Well, it's really hard to catch a panic attack up front. you're probably going to catch it on the backside. So the more you embrace the fact that you've had panic attacks and the more you embrace, I know what to do during a panic attack, the better off you're going to be. That means you become resilient. Like other exercises, meditation comes from different varieties. Now, what is meditation? Meditation comes from one very simple idea, and it's actually a Buddhist idea, and it's actually a Christian idea, and it's actually a Muslim idea. And what it comes from is the idea that I focus on what is making me suffer. That's what you do when you meditate. What is making me suffer? And how do I mitigate, solve what is making me suffer? How do I minimize what is making me suffer? If you meditate, if you pray, you are training your brain how to understand how to mitigate suffering in your life. And that's what we have to do during a panic attack. That's why people who meditate, people who are mindful of what is making their life suffer and thinking through their suffering and becoming aware of what is their suffering and how pervasive their suffering is in their marriage, in their child, in raising children, in their job, in their relationships, and how to mitigate, how to solve, how to minimize the pressure of those suffering, that is the goal of meditation. So if you're going to meditate, you better meditate on your suffering and becoming aware of your suffering and how to mitigate your suffering. That is the whole point. You do that, you're also going to remedy the ability to have panic attacks because your brain is going to learn what to do. You know, eating healthy, physical activity, and sleep are huge. There's a lot of people that are fat. And when you get fat, your nose gets fat and your breathing gets fat. And then you got to have it like a CPAP machine. And then nobody can stand sleeping next to you because you snore all the time. Fat people snore because their nose gets fatter and your septum gets fatter. And so it's harder to breathe. So the deal is you want to eat healthy. You want to have physical activity. You want to have balance in your life. You need sleep. You have to have sleep to help you manage your emotions. If you don't sleep and you don't dream, you're not going to process emotions that need to be processed, and you're not going to wake up fresh, and you're going to be a turd all day long to every human being, and you're going to be irritable, and you're going to have less of yourself available, and you're going to be more susceptible to panic attacks. Another way is learning how to have progressive muscle relaxation. One of the best ways to learn this is to get a massage. I can't stand to have people touching me, but a massage is probably a good idea. Learning how to become more aware of how your muscles operate and how much control they have of you is very important because your muscles is your heart, is your lungs, is your kidneys, is your liver, is your stomach. They're all muscles. There's muscles that operate around them. That's how they function. You need your muscles. And so the deal is lazy people don't take care of themselves. They don't eat well, and they end up fat, out of shape, and lacking the ability to get oxygen quickly because their body is not efficient at that. The other part is that fat also takes up more veins, more blood to maintain the fat, to keep it alive. And so therefore, it steals your blood supply. So people have trouble breathing because they have so much fat that their veins and their bloodstream has to maintain the fat just to keep you alive, not only your organs, but all the fat. It has to do that too. So it's really hard to keep oxygen when you don't take care of your health. You can also try guided imagery. And this actively imagines relaxing in the environment, distracting yourselves from anxious thoughts by allowing, in the present situation you're in, by guiding imagery of a faith-based application of what could be happening or what could happen rather than a fear-based. If you could operate in a faith-based formula about what is happening, what could happen, you are going to have a better shot at relaxing and not laying into a panic attack. There's all kinds of ways to become more aware. You want to practice the symptoms you're afraid of. Interpreting symptoms like a pounding heart, feeling lightheaded as dangerous as I'm dying throws fuel on the fire. So if you're gonna think, "Oh my God, I'm dying. I'm having a heart attack. I'm dying because I'm having a panic attack." Well, you probably are gonna be closer to death if you keep thinking you're gonna die instead of thinking what you need to do to solve it. The symptoms snowball over a matter of seconds, and you find yourself in the midst of a full-blown panic attack that feels like a heart attack. Once again, it's because you have no oxygen in your organs and your brain is hoarding it all because you're acting like you're crazy. Intentionally bringing on the very symptoms you're afraid of, you can practice having them outside of the context of an attack. Stop seeing them as threatening and so, oh, I need to do this. I need to do that. It's kind of like a snowstorm or an ice storm. Okay, you're going to prepare how to drive your car before you drive your car, or while you're driving the car, you're going to adjust to the environment that you're in. That's what we have to do. We embrace it. We say, bring it on. It sounds weird, but a panic disorder, which is a fear of having a panic attack, reverse psychology actually works really, really well. When you start to worry about a panic or feel that first a moment of a panic attack, tell yourself, all right, body, I want more. Let's do this. Hit me with your best shot. Hit me with that panic attack. I'm going to deal with it. Being willing to feel panic symptoms will stop the cycle of isolation. After all, panic is a fight or flight response gone haywire. So when you try to fight panic itself, it all amplifies exponentially. And by contrast, when you welcome the sensation of fear, your body has no reason to fight or flee because you're not responding to it. So bring it on. Bring on. Come on, panic attack. I feel you. I know what you want. Come on. I know what I have to do to fix it. It's all right. And you start to ground yourself. And the more you do that, the less panic attacks you're going to have. Panic is all in the interpretation. Think of it this way. At 3 a.m., the phone rings. What happened? Well, it could mean your sister's dead, your brother needs to be bailed out of jail, your teenager is in the emergency room, but it also mean a wrong number, a prank call, someone who got their time zones mixed up. Until you pick up the phone, the reason for the call is a product of your interpretation. Everything is a product of your interpretation. You need to learn how to interpret life not through a panic, fear-based lens, but a faith-based lens. And if it is a fear-based situation, you will deal with it. You also need to come up with a new thought. The thoughts that go through our head, the cognitive symptoms of panic are scary. I'm dying. I'm going crazy. I'm going to pass out. I'm going to throw up. I'm going to humiliate myself. The list goes on. So when you feel panic starting to rise, talk back to your thoughts in a new way. I got this. It's going to be all right. I'm going to get through it. I've had this before. Screw the anxiety. It's going to be fine. I'm going to move myself through this. Slowly inch into panic situations. Calm down. Ground yourself. Allow yourself to get oxygen. Don't exacerbate your organs. Let yourself breathe. Let yourself drink water. And calm down. Let your body reset. Understand that this is what I have to do. This is just embrace it. I need to take a moment. I just need to take a moment to reset my body. Once I do that, everything's going to be fine. Avoidance feeds the panic. Oh my God, I'm feeling some anxiety. Oh my God, oh, it's a crowd. Oh, it's this. If you're going to focus on all the triggers and just exacerbate the triggers, you're going to drive yourself nuts. Driving on a bridge, being in a crowd, grocery stores, movie theaters, restaurants, airplanes, elevators. If you want to make all of those things turn you into a panic attack, you've just given them all of the control. The deal is you need to get in them and feel grounded. That is up to you. If you want to go into a plane and feel like fear, you're going to live in fear and it's going to be a pretty miserable experience for you and the rest of the people that have to deal with you. and everybody's got to calm you down because you won't do it for yourself. That's crappy. All right, that's our show. I want to thank everybody for listening. I love hearing from you. You could do that at Libsyn, LIBSYN.com, Dr. Gary Bell's Absurd Psychology. Now, remember, panic attacks happen from trying to stay strong for too long. Also, anxiety is a part of me, but it's not who I am. Also, to avoid panic attacks, try a brown paper bag to your mouth and drink all the vodka. Thanks for listening, everybody.